Shalom. Something a little different tonight on this festive evening. I'd love to share a Chanukah story. This is a story about a farmer and Chanukah. And as Chanukah was coming, the farmer realized that at the passing of the year that had gone by since the last Chanukah, the farmer was no longer able to run the farm the way he always had. He was slowing down a little bit. He was feeling like he wanted to rest a little more and spend less time out in the fields. But luckily, the farmer had three small, well, not so small anymore, as happens with children. He had three almost grown children, creatively named Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. So he called Aleph, Bet, and Gimel into his barn on the first day that would become the first night of Chanukah that evening. And he said to the three of them, I am going to need somebody to take over the farm when Chanukah is over. And in order to know which of the three of you should be the one to take over the farm, I have a task for you to complete. I need you to each take a shot at filling this barn completely. Not 1 inch of space can go untouched by whatever it is that you bring in to fill the barn. You need to be resourceful. You need to use what we have around. You need to be innovative. That means you need to come up with something that nobody else has ever thought of. And you need to be clever and get the job done. I'm going to give each one of you 48 hours, that's 2 nights of Chanukah, to get this job done. Now, Aleph, you're the oldest, so you're going to go first. Well, Aleph was not afraid of hard work. Aleph was, in fact, quite resourceful. Aleph knew just how to use what was around. So Aleph looked around the farm, and what do you think was the first thing Aleph saw? Oh, that would be a good answer. Hey, it would be good. But that's not the first thing Aleph saw. Next guess, what's the first thing Aleph saw on the farm? Cows and sheep and horses and pigs. And Aleph thought, aha, I know how to fill this barn. So Aleph spent the first day that led up to the first night of Chanukah getting all the animals together, giving them a little extra food, making sure the animals were really ready to listen to Aleph. And then for the second day, leading up to the second night of Chanukah, Aleph led the animals into the barn. And Aleph filled the barn to the brim. It looked a lot like the ark, I'll be honest. Aleph filled the barn to the brim with animals and then shut the door real quick. And Aleph said, hey, Dad, I'm ready. It's the second night of Chanukah. I have filled the barn. Come see what I did. And so very slowly Aleph opened the door. And you know what happened then, right? What happened? A stampede, basically, because the horses had been stepping on the sheep, and the sheep had been loud and bothering the goats, and the goats were cramped and stepping on the pigs. And before you knew it, the animals were all over the farm. They had all left the barn, and when Dad, the farmer, came to look, the barn was not full, but empty. And to make matters worse, the animals were wreaking havoc and eating all the corn. And Aleph looked at his dad and said, so, did I get the job? I'm sorry, Aleph, he said. You did not get the job. But I appreciate how resourceful you were in using what we had available. But now it was Bet's turn. So Bet got to work. Now, Bet was a big thinker, very innovative, and always coming up with interesting ideas. But Bet also knew that Bet had to be resourceful as well, using what was already around. So Bet had an idea. What about filling the barn with the farm itself? So Bet started digging. Bet on the first, well, I guess now we're on the third day, right, that led up to the third night of Chanukah. Bet got shovels, and Bet got backhoes and front hoes and tractors and trenchers and a bulldozer and every kind of farm equipment that you could ever even begin to think of to start digging up the rocks and the dirt and the earth from the farm and began shoveling it into the barn. Now it was the fourth day of Chanukah, leading up to the fourth night, and the barn was full. And it was also, as you can imagine, a mess. There were holes everywhere, outside and also inside. It was impossible, Bet realized now, to fill every space with rocks, because as each rock touched up against the other rock, what did you have in between? Space and dirt and bugs and all kinds of stuff that comes. Weeds, maybe? It was impossible to fill every inch of space inside the barn with earth from the farm, because there was always space in between the rocks. It was impossible to fill every inch, and it was dirty too. So Bet said to his father on the fourth night of Chanukah, "I don't think I got the job, did I?" And the farmer appreciated Bet's innovation and asked Bet to please use that same innovative flair to please figure out how to clean up this mess. And then it was the fifth day, leading up to the fifth night of Chanukah, and it was finally Gimmel's turn. Now, Gimmel was the youngest and the smallest, and nobody really thought that Gimmel had what it would take to be able to fill the barn completely without any space. Gimmel thought and thought. Gimmel knew she had to be resourceful, and she knew she needed to use what they had around, but not the animals, and definitely not the earth. Gimmel knew she had to be innovative and come up with an idea that no one had had before. Gimmel knew that she had to be clever and get the job done. On the first day, she sat under a tree and thought. The fifth night of Chanukah came and went, and then it was the sixth day. And on the sixth day leading up to the sixth night of Chanukah, Gimmel sat under the tree and thought. And she watched the clouds, and she watched the animals as they slept and as they woke, and she watched the cornfields, and she could almost discern the quiet growth of the stalks. And then night was beginning to come. And Aleph and Bet looked over at her, and they thought, how would she ever get this job done? She hasn't done one iota of work. She hasn't even gotten a backhoe or a cow or anything to try to figure out how to fill the barn. Maybe they would have another shot. But as the sun began to set, she went into the house, and she got the menorah, the Chanukiah that they would light for Chanukah. It also happened to be Shabbat, so you know what else she grabbed while she was at it? She grabbed those candlesticks, and she brought them in to the empty barn. Said, "Dad, I'm ready. The sun is setting, and the barn is dark. Brothers, come on in, and let's see how we can fill this barn." So she took out the Chanukiah, and she took out the candles, and the sound of her small voice filled the room as she began to light. Baruch atah Adonai. And she lit each of those 6 lights. And then she lit the lights of Shabbat. And guess what? The barn was filled with light. The light touched every corner, not only of the barn itself, but the light also gleamed in their eyes and in their hearts as they grasped hands and knew that the farm would be okay and the legacy would survive. Little Gimmel had been resourceful and innovative and clever, and she got the job done by bringing the light of Chanukah to her family and to the farm. And so too do we, each night of Chanukah and every night beyond, as we look within ourselves to figure out how we are going to fill this world with light, how we're going to leave every corner untouched with the light that we bring from ourselves, through our families, and through the love that we share with one another on Chanukah and Shabbat, and on every day yet to come. Shabbat Shalom and Happy Chanukah.